this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so this episode is well and away the saddest one in the entire series because it's the episode where Korosensei is finally assassinated. So, yeah, it's a very sad and somber episode, and for very good reason. So, it's all starts off with Korosensei having just revived Kaino. And Nagisa is just happy that Kaede is alive, but then Kaede doesn't really understand what happened to her, but then realizes that her clothes are actually ripped and tattered, and quickly realizes that she's basically half naked. So Isekai gives her a jacket to cover up the fact that her clothes are all ripped and tattered, while the rest of the girls put Okajima into a headlock so that he actually can't stare at her naked body, or half naked body, as it were, because obviously he's the class pervert. He's not allowed. Kaede is actually lamenting on the fact that Korosensei fixed her hair but not her clothes. Okajima actually does let out a bit of a lewd, well, sort of. He's not entirely sure if it's appropriate, but he does make a maybe lewd remark about the fact that he kind of noticed that her breast size seems to have gone up a bit. Though he admits himself that he isn't entirely sure if that's appropriate to ask. But at which point some of the other girls wonder if Korosensei is actually able to do that. But when they go to ask him, they find him collapsed on the floor. And they realize that he's likely exhausted from the fight between himself and the Reaper. But then Korosensei tells them that they can't dawdle and run out the clock because they all know that it's time and that it actually needs to end one way or another. So at which point they finally realize that now all good things have to come to an end and that they actually do need to assassinate Korosensei now because it's either they let the laser do it or they kill him. So either way, he's going to die. And Isekai even brings this up. He has the class put it to a vote as to whether or not they actually want to kill him. And he asks who doesn't want to kill him, and everybody unanimously sticks up their hands. And then he responds who wants to kill him. And while everybody is reluctant to do so, as Nagisa points out, this is what their entire assassination classroom has been building to. And everybody raises their hand. At which point Isekai realizes that they've actually come to a decision. And then they proceed to use the one weakness Korosensei described to them himself about how if they pin down all of his tentacles, he can't move. And while he's not going to move regardless because he's kind of very badly injured and very badly beaten up from his fight, they do wind up pinning him down regardless. And Ryo asks even brings this up, pointing out that he can't move if they pin all his tentacles down. And Korosensei responds that yes, but he also points out that some of the students seem like they're not putting their all into it. And everybody then proceeds to tighten their grip rather cheerfully. At which point Meg decides to ask the very important question of who's actually going to do the deed and who's actually going to kill Korosensei. At which point Nagisa responds that he'll do it, having just gone into the main facility to actually grab a Ensei Sensei knife so they can kill him. And everybody accepts that, especially Terasaga and Karma, pointing out that he's easily the most skilled, the top of the class, and that they have no beef with him actually killing Korosensei. So with that, Nagisa then crawls onto Korosensei's chest and prepares to do the deed. But before that happens, Korosensei actually has a couple of things that he wants to say, and specifically to his colleagues, and then asks Irina if she actually does want to actually join in on the bounty, pointing out that if she's not helping pin him down, that she won't actually get a cut. But she points out that she doesn't really care about the money anymore, pointing out that now she realizes it's not about her, but more about the bond between him and his students, which she happily accepts. At which point he turns to Kurasama and tells him that it was ultimately because of Kurasama that they were actually able to keep on this path, and that he hopes that Kurasama will continue to guide them into the future. And Kurosama agrees to do that, and pointing out that he knows Korosensei won't be around to actually since Korosensei won't be around to keep them on that path, that he'll have to do it in his stead, and that he'll continue to look after them long after he's gone. And then, for the first and only time in the entire series, Kurosama acknowledges Korosensei by name and tells him to rest in peace. Which is a very fitting end to his character arc, about how this entire time Kurosama and Irina, to an extent, have completely and utterly decided not to call Korosensei by his given name that the students gave him. But here it shows that that Kurosama does respect Korosensei enough to finally acknowledge him by his name as he's about to die. So it's a very sad moment for Kurosama's character, and it's definitely sad. But then Korosensei actually reveals that he actually wants to do one last roll call before they actually finish him off, stating that he does actually want to make sure everybody's present and accounted for. And actually, and while it is a very somber moment, it is kind of undercut by the fact that Korosensei suddenly has a panic attack when he realizes that there's a possibility that not everybody will be present and accounted for. But everybody confirms that they are and tells him to just get on with it. So at which point he proceeds to start giving the final roll call of the entire series, which highlights all of the characters that we've met up to this point. And the reactions to Korosensei's death, and based on their personalities, some are actually taking it a lot better than others. For example, both Terasuga and Ryo, they're doing their best to hold it in, and you can tell they're upset, but they're kind of processing it a little better than some of the other students are. Specifically Karma, who was very much loved Korosensei, and very much respected him as a teacher. So. Yeah, it's clear. So yeah, it's clear that a lot of people are taking it. That some people are taking it well, and some aren't. But in any case, as he's giving roll call for each of his 28 students, he then reminisces on all the things that they've done over the past year. Pointing out that while they were training to actually become assassins, and now know full well what it means to take a life. He also points out that in the process they actually learn how to give that life meaning, and while he accepts that he's going to die, he does point out that they were the best gift they could have actually given him, and he hopes that he'll be able to continue on with them in the next life. So yeah, it's a very sad moment, but in any case, of course, after Korosensei collects attendance for all 28 of his students, Nagisa then proceeds to get ready to stab him, which Korosensei points out that he actually doesn't need to move the tie to do, pointing out that the tie actually has a hole in it from when Yukimura got stabbed with a tentacle mine, and that he's actually been keeping that hole open for sentimental reasons. So with that, Nagisa actually proceeds to go in and actually stab Korosensei, but it quickly becomes apparent that Nagisa is actually shaking and is unable to actually finish him off. So Korosensei realizes this and realizes that Nagisa's mind is completely erratic, and uses one of the few tentacles that aren't pinned down to actually stabilize Nagisa's heart rate and erratic mind. Pointing out that he shouldn't have anguish in his heart when he kills his teacher. And tells Nagisa that he should do so with a smile on his face and keep his chin up. And Nagisa, after taking a moment to collect himself and taking a deep breath, then proceeds to thank Korosensei for everything he's done. And Korosensei responds to that sentiment in kind, and then Nagisa stabs him. So yeah. And as he after he stabs Korosensei, and as he's stabbing Korosensei, Nagisa points out that there was very little he could actually say without bursting into tears. So he decided to thank Korosensei in the only way he would accept and know how. By directly stabbing Korosensei through the heart and putting all of his emotions into his assassination, putting effectively his sadness. His appreciation for everything that Korosensei has done for him, he puts all of it into the assassination attempt and kills Korosensei with his feelings, basically, as well as a knife. That's important as well. But But once Korosensei is dead, his body actually starts glowing in a giant balls of light and actually scatter up into the sky. And it's almost as if Korosensei's life was being snuffed out, he was actually congratulating them for actually finishing the deed. But once all the little magical sparkles actually fade away, now that Korosensei is actually dead, all the students finally let out all of their sadness and crying and started mourning the loss of their teacher. And it's a very sad moment. But in any case, following that, Karasuba, a search team actually then comes to actually check up on Korosensei and figure out what happened. Since the laser actually fired at some point in the middle of the night, and they just stayed there all night. And as it turns out, we've later find out why. But Karasuba does point out that the mountain, and by extension the students, are actually under his jurisdiction, and that the rest of the military guys need to actually go home, which they kind of accept because they really don't have to. They really don't have much of a choice, so they go home. But in any case, that same night, the rest of the students actually go into the main building and back into the classroom, hoping to find one last gift from Korosensei. And indeed, he does. He actually left them three things. He left them one at Karasuma's request. He actually left them a book of all of their life teachings. B, he left them a graduation album, and which contains some of Korosensei's thoughts about some of the subjects. And C, he left them a diploma to signify that they actually graduated from the assassination classroom. Once everybody sits down, they actually start reading through his musings and his thoughts. And it's almost as if Korosensei is still very much alive and is still very much present. Revealing that he actually does very much. He's very much alive in the form of his thoughts. He obviously, physically he's dead, but spiritually, he's still very much alive in his students' memories, and he actually does kind of represent that through his graduation album and final thoughts. So, yeah, thoughts of all of his teaching philosophies are kind of piled up, and they're bigger than a dictionary. But it quickly becomes apparent that Korosensei put a lot of thought into it, and some of the students are a little bit annoyed about some of his thoughts and musings. For example, in Fuwa's case. And this is actually a really funny fourth wall joke, but there actually is a spin-off called Assassination Classroom. There's actually an Assassination Classroom spin-off where Korosensei is alive and well and is teaching kids in a demon school. So yeah, there is indeed a spin-off of Assassination Classroom. I may review that at some point if I can find the anime for it. But it's a very funny, but it is a very but there is a very funny moment where they actually do acknowledge that there is indeed a spin-off where he's alive. So if you like the main anime and want to see a version of this story where Korosensei doesn't die, there is a version of Assassination. There is a spin-off version of it where he's a demon king teaching all of his students in a demon school. So it's very funny. And again, if I can find it, I will review it. But I don't think I have time. But I'll try and find it if I can. But it is a very funny scene. But in any case, as Nagisa points out, as they've been reading through the book, they do point out that yes, Korosensei had a lot of thoughts, but they do kind of become a bit overwhelming, and eventually the students after sobbing themselves to sleep wake up in the assassination classroom and realize that now it's time for them to actually go graduate for real from Kunigigaoka Junior High and whatever life decides to throw at them. And yes, that is how and while I would say that this is actually a good ending to the story, there is actually one last episode where which actually wraps up all the loose ends. So yeah, there are actually a couple of loose ends that are wrapped up by the final episode. So yeah, there is one more episode of Assassination Classroom left. This is the saddest episode and is more or less the finale to all of their stories, but it isn't the final episode because there are still some final loose threads that the final episode do wrap up and is kind of the definitive ending to this story. So I will be reviewing that next week. It's consider that kind of an epilogue to the story, but yeah, so for all intents and purposes, this is the end of Assassination Classroom. There is an epilogue episode, but other than that, this is the end of the series. So yeah, Korosensei is dead, and all of the students now have to go on with their lives and kind of figure out how to accept the fact that they killed their teacher, more or less. They have to figure out how to move on with their lives, knowing that they killed their teacher. But good news is that they can now actually use all the skills they learned in the assassination classroom, as well as the bond between the student and teacher, to actually move forward in life and actually go on to live to live their life to the fullest, and actually figure out how to live fulfilling lives using the skills they learned in the assassination classroom and all of Korosensei's teachings. So yeah, with that, that's actually going to do it for my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below if you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It helps support me, and if you guys do support me, I will list you on my website, so go check that out. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does help me, so by all means, go ahead and do that. And if you want to help support me even further, be sure to go check out my Twitch. I stream regularly over there, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm having a bit of internet issues, so I don't know how well the streams are going to go going forward. I'm trying to work out what's wrong with my internet, so I can actually maybe fix the streams going forward, so that it's actually good on your end. It works fine on my end. I'll be perfectly honest, it works perfectly on my end, but on your end it might be a little bit messy. So yeah, if you guys got any advice on what I can actually do to improve my internet, then by all means go ahead. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, if you want to see more of what you like, or try something new, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But, regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!